5 minutes of private time with one of the most evil men in the galaxy.
Yeah.
Please for Mr. Altar, Mr. James Callis.
Hi everybody, happy Sunday. Just by apologizing to lots of people who I thought I could write French to on my autographs. I've just been checking Google Translate. Not as good as I thought I was. If you feel it's totally whatever, it just doesn't make any sense, please come back to me, I'll write you another one. In particular, the person I wrote, j'étais adopté, now realize it's enlevé. Alors. So, now that's out of the way. Obviously it's a Sunday, and I'll be conducting my own cult ceremony, religious ceremony. We'd all like to kneel. Joking. Why don't we have some questions?
Hi James.
Hi.
I was wondering, next to Battlestar, what other part would you have liked to have played on the show, from an actor's point of view?
The question was, what other part would I have liked to play on the show apart from my own? I don't know, about 3 years into the show, we did a podcast with Ron Moore, and we were all sat around the table. I think there was Jamie and Tamo and myself, and we were all drinking whiskey, and it was quite informal, and that question came up. You know, what part would you have liked to play? And basically everybody around the table said, you know, basically I would really like to have played Gaius Baltar for lots and lots of reasons, and it came to me and I was like, yeah, I wanted to play Gaius Baltar as well. I can't really imagine whatever. But that's the strange thing about casting and being an actor. It could have been any one of them. To be really honest with you, when I first got told about the part, I wanted to be Apollo. I didn't realize that one of my best friends had been cast in that role. But I was like, hey, you know, I want to be the guy in the flight suit firing a phaser and flying a spacecraft. I don't want to be some, you know, snidely whiplash by a computer going, you know. So I didn't realize how much fun playing Gaius was going to be. On reflection, I can't really imagine having played another character, apart from maybe Adama. That's a joke. Yeah, no, I think Gaius Baltar, pretty much.
I was wondering, James Edward Olmos is well, we've known him for a long time. He's a really big actor in our opinion. What was it like for you to work with him?
Initially quite intimidating, to be honest. He was the person who got all the cast together, I think, within the first week, and we all kind of piled into his trailer, and he was like, the network is making this thing for whatever it is, 8 weeks, we're filming this pilot. I am telling you right now, we are going to be on television for 5 years. And that was in the first week. He went, and you have to pace yourself. You have to know that we're almost like shooting a movie, but it's going to take 5 years. Don't throw all of your cards on the table in one scene. You have a lot of time to get through this thing, but actually it's going to take all of your stamina and all of your skill. And I swear to God, if you don't take it seriously and you don't think this is important, then maybe we're not going to be running for as long. He is an incredible artist, but also as well, like underneath that very, very tough exterior is somebody genuinely with a heart of gold, and somebody who is encouraged and given warmth and so much great advice to everybody within the show. I view, my children call Edward James Olmos Uncle Eddie, and that's a testament to just what a very special and beautiful man he is. So initially I was a bit scared, and then grew to love the man.
Hello.
Hi.
I was wondering because, because when you play Gaius Baltar, he's a very complex this character, and sometimes you really want to kill him, and sometimes you pity him almost.
Yes.
And how do you, as an actor, play that range on screen?
I suppose I look for the things that are going to, on some level, I kind of touched upon this briefly yesterday, but be perverse. It's like do things that are unthinkable. Yeah, there are certain times when I wanted to elicit sympathy for the character because he was so vain and he was so desperately narcissistic. It's like if you just play on one level, then on some level you just hate him and he's not really worth it. There's some times in it, I'm trying to remember, very few and far between, where Gaius Baltar suddenly, because the writers decide, does the right thing. And you're like, wait a minute, this douchebag is, he's doing the right thing, isn't that amazing? It, on some level, scene specific, and on some level, as per the episode. But, yeah, it's part of that character. Part of being that character was being allowed to be so many different facets within one individual. And I think the one thing that was rooted, or like keeping him being anchored, was his understanding week to week of just how guilty he felt and the dreadful shame that was going on inside his brain. I mean, he hadn't just let himself down, he let the planet down. And when you start to look into that and whatever, a lot of the fears and the lightness and whatever is on some level a huge amount of denial. You know, oh, I didn't do it at all, you know, etc. And then something else happens which just, you know, smacks you in the kidneys and you're like, oh no, I did. And I need to pause and reflect. So it's just really the character. Thanks.
It's good for his condition. So, when you play this kind of iconic character in this kind of TV series, in this kind of genre, with this kind of fan base, obviously it's really easy to get identified with that character. So can you tell us something about your current projects or the projects you're going to be involved in the near future?
I'm afraid I can't. I'm involved in one or two things right now. Until I film them or I'm in them, I can't. But yes, it's really true. You do get associated, even on set. So I can tell a funny story right now. Gaius Baltar perhaps wasn't the most popular person aboard the Battlestar. There was a scene around the time that we found the Eye of Jupiter, islanded in a sea of stars. And for example, there was a bit where the chief finds me in the temple after Diana has had her eclipse and has her eyes blown out and dies in front of me. And he just had a line about, there was just this click of a gun to the back of my head and they were like, you know, hey Gaius, I found you. And we were discussing with Michael Ryan, the director, and we're like, I don't think the chief would just, you know, just hold a gun to his head. You know, be like, hi Gaius, which is what he did. And that then developed an idea for the show that we were all having. It was like, this is the most hated man, he's been with the Cylons. How do you get him aboard Galactica without everybody knowing? And this wasn't in the script. Excuse me. So the idea was that it would be this really cool thing that Gaius has actually brought aboard Galactica in a body bag so that nobody sees the identification. And it was one of these things that, you know, you knew as the audience that he was in that raptor, and there was all this kind of like, let's take the body out, there's people who've been killed on the planet. Obviously I wasn't really in that body bag, because why, you know, only for the one bit where they zipped it open and saw my face and then zipped it up, but that was like a cutaway. But in between, you know, they've got this body bag, and pretty much everybody on set took a turn and kicked it. And I mean everybody. There was this body bag, it was like, supposedly with me inside it, and like the director went over and gave it a kick, producers came over and gave it a kick, and that was kind of appalling as the actor playing, like, oh right, I really am the scapegoat. So you play somebody who's strange things, you know, if you play somebody in a show who's a psychotic nutter, and I've played a few, you strangely get a lot of respect. Even when you're getting your vegetables at lunch, people are like, yeah, do you want the peas? You okay with that? You know, fine. If you play an imbecile or an idiot or somebody who's always tripping over, everybody thinks you're an idiot. It's one of those things about acting. So, yes, I mean, one of the shows I did years ago was Bridget Jones's Diary, and pretty much everybody on set thought that I was gay. And for the next 3 years, pretty much every part I was offered was to be the gay friend. And we've got a joke going out, like, I've had a long-standing joke for ages that, you know, I get a phone call from my agents and they're like, James, there's a sci-fi alien drama. We need you to be the alien's gay best friend, if that's possible. So it's always good to switch it up. And yes, I've had since Gaius some dubious characters for scientists. Funny that. So yeah, it'll be good to step into a new avatar sometime soon.
You played a scientist, Dr. Traffic Grant in Eureka a few times, but you played a man old-fashioned, a doctor out of the 40s, who then gets, well, he's out of time. And what research did you do for a role like that?
I did quite a bit of research. I thought that idea was just such a brilliant idea in that town, especially for that space. So actually what I did was I watched a lot of 1940s movies, and I got some stick about this, because when you watch them in the 1940s and they talk, it's as if film is so expensive they're going to run out of it, or that everybody's got an appointment in 3 minutes time while they're filming. Now listen, Bill, get to the thing. It's like everything is so quick in those movies, the way that they talk to each other. So I wanted to bring a bit of that to that particular party. And so, yes, just watched loads of 40s films. And I found watching the films that in the films, pretty much everybody sounds like a gangster. Even the judges, even the police.
Now listen here, son. I don't know what you're doing. But it's one of those things. You got Moxie, baby. All right, sport.
It's all on this kind of level. And that's a lot of fun to play with, like, somebody who is born out of time and then arrives, like, right now. Like, there's a sense of complete wonder at looking at a mobile phone. And there are a few things that they'd written that we didn't film about. There was going to be like a little bit of like Dr. Grant in his office and like the phone ringing and him not knowing whether it was the computer or the telephone or the doorbell, and like a kind of Sorcerer's Apprentice moment of like the whole office just going up in smoke because the guy didn't know quite how to handle the new technology. I did some research into the Einstein-Rosen bridge, which is actually the real physics behind the idea of creating a wormhole through time. They changed that to the Einstein-Grant bridge because I was supposed to be working with Einstein at the time. That you'll be so surprised at these shows. For example, Eureka and Battlestar and Star Trek, I think as well, have science advisors. One of whom I know quite well, Dr. Kevin Grazier, who's an astrophysicist at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And a lot of the science, even though it's embellished upon and we make it for the show, is based on some form of science fact, which is kind of truly wild. I just remember that there was one time when one of the doctors in it, played by Niall Matter, he had this jet bike that was just going to take off and like do a loop around the field. And there was this phenomenal looking machine like outside. And I was like looking at it, I was like, hey, does it go in the air? Me and they went, no, it's television, James. Doesn't do that, no. No, we're going to have him on a green screen, like, you know, we had you on a green screen. It's a prop. So.
I was wondering if you watch your own work?
Not really. No. Sometimes when you've done something, like when you're doing the show, sometimes it's useful to see back almost immediately, what we call the rushes, the takes from the day. And then you can see what they're going to use, what they don't use. What they don't use, you can use again in something else. But watching it back years later is kind of strange, and it's like looking in a mirror that doesn't reflect you. You can't remember being in that scene. You don't remember saying those lines. You don't, no. Well, I don't. Maybe I should. I'd be a better actor. We'll see.
Hi. I was wondering, Katie Sackhoff, the actress that played Starbuck, she took her flight suit from the set, although she wasn't supposed to. Did you take anything from the set?
No. It's really... I didn't... After a certain while, I really didn't want to be Gaius Baltar anymore, on a really deep level. Especially like during the stuff when he was tortured by the Cylons and then tortured by the colonial fleet. And I would get up in the morning, I had this huge beard, and I'd look at myself and I'd be like, I can't see me now. I can only see this guy and his pain. And I just want to rid myself of this. I am not this man. I'm only pretending to be him. But slowly, slowly that thing seeps in. So I actually wanted nothing. And also as well, like the only thing I really had that was like indicative or whatever was that suit that I wore in the miniseries. I'm like, yeah, I'm really going to walk around like that in London. It's like, hey, I'm Gaius Baltar, right? Like, no, I'm not. So I left everything there. There wasn't anything that I wanted.
If you, as an actor, play on the set and you watch the episode afterwards, does it always come out the way you think it's going to be, or what's it like to see after you put a lot of work to see the episode actually?
It depends. I would say 9 times out of 10, it's pretty faithful to the thing that you remember, because you're watching it almost immediately. What's interesting is the coverage. And by coverage, I mean like, you take you do the scene a lot of times. I had a friend come visit me from London, and he was sat there. He works in some government think tanks, very, very smart, has a lot of patience, and he works in like getting groups of people who have diametrically opposed opinions to sit around a table and conduct affairs in an amicable fashion. So he watched us do a scene, a take of a scene, and then he came over and he went, okay, are you going to move on to the next one? I went, no, we're going to do this again. We're going to do this again, this scene. He went, what? I went, yeah, we're going to do it again right now. He went, but then you'll move on to the next scene. I went, no, we're going to do this scene again, but we've got to film it from somebody else's home. He went, no. What am I going to do? I'm going to have to go and like eat something at craft service. So your emotion is mostly held in the face, and that's why it's very important in television and whatever that people come in, as they call it, for your close-up. You could be giving the most amazing performance of your life, but on some level, if you are filmed in like the whole of your body and the camera's over there, you as the audience are not going to get it. And sometimes that can be a bit disappointing when you think that you've really done something great, whatever, and the coverage is like, you're way back, and you're like, but you can't see my face, you can't really see what. But that is very, very few and far between. Mostly, as an actor, the people who are editing you are your best friends. There's like, they only want the very best that suits you and suits the show. And it's now my opinion, having been in a lot of stuff, that the more they cut, the better. It makes you look better. And it's like, on some level, cutting a gem. And the more precise it is, and the less inclusions there are, the better everything looks.
Obviously, Battlestar Galactica was loved by critics and fans alike. Was there at any time a sense amongst the cast or crew that the show didn't go on long enough because you ended it was really final? One would have a really hard time imagining they would go on after that.
Good question. Jamie Bamber, who played Apollo, and myself were the only English people in the show. We work very differently in the UK. So when I was signing, this is by way of explanation, but when I was signing a contract, the contract is produced before you audition. Like, before you go and test for the network, it's like you've got to sign your life away for 7 years. Like, I'm from London, we don't do that stuff. I'm like, Christ almighty, 7, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I don't know if I'm going to do this for 7. So I went to go and see an attorney in America. And I was like, right, I mean, this show, 7 years, I mean, that's a long time. So the attorney was like, oh, we get this all the time. All the time. The Brits come in here and they're like, oh, I got to sign a contract for 7 years. Is there any way you can make it 2 years? He said, the Americans come in here and say, I got a contract for 7 years. Can we make it 14? And there is something about, as well, in a show like ours, you can't just string it out forever. And then you make the show not as good as it might be. And the writers definitely were not prepared to just string it out forever. Edward James Olmos had a joke that, like, if we ran into the 7th year, we'd have an episode about him losing his pen and then him finding it. Like, we can't, you can only run from the Cylons for so long. You can only keep that ante up for so long. And I think that there were people who wanted us to go on longer, but I think it was a very wise decision to finish when we did. And it was like, we were all done. I mean, we loved it. We loved it like crazy. But 7 years of doing that, we're like, you know, everybody wanted to, like, go do something else for a while. And I think it was better for the show and better for the fans.
Who wants the final question?
I think that the last episode gives a lot of opportunities to analyze yourself. The last episode. What's your own interpretation of the last scene?
The last scene being myself and number 6 walking through New York. Is that what you mean? You know, honestly, there's a funny joke that we say in when you're making something in America. People are constantly asking, you know, what's going on in the story, what's going on in the script, what are we filming? And the normal answer is, don't ask me, I'm in production. Which basically means, you know, I made it, I've got no idea. I am not sure. And I'm not even sure what my own take is on it. Whether I was a character inside number 6's head, whether we were both angels, whether all of this had happened before and was going to happen again. As I've said before, the most important moment really was the camera going off us. It's not really what we were saying, but like onto this little robot in a store in New York, which was actually Vancouver, I seem to remember. Yeah, I was really upset about that because they were like, I was reading it, I was like, oh my god, we're going to film in New York. Wrong. Yeah, it was like a mock-up. But so the most important thing was that there was this robot, and you're like watching this thing like do a dance and stuff, and it's like, hey, watch out. Right now it's doing a dance. In 10 years' time and whatever, it's going to look very human and be doing a lot of things, and already computers are on some level thinking from themselves and learning by their own mistakes. So that was the essential thing is that my essential take on the end of it is you know, technology is not only very enhancing, but it can be very worrying. It can be. It's not just freeing us up, etc. And you know, while we all get to be very quick on our thumbs with Twitter and with Facebook and everything, fewer and fewer people are reading books. A lot of our cultural heritage is almost slipping away. Children are being born without a knowledge of a lot. Like we have to tell people to go out and play games, otherwise they'd just be on the computer all day long. Which is not something I remember from, you know, everything is clicking along so much faster, and I think that's it's like nota bene, watch well. That's what I'd say, possibly.
Ladies and gentlemen, James Callis.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.